Hey everyone, I want to talk about a small tool that I'm sharing with you. It's a Python script tool that allows you to basically change a pose and readapt your whole animation compared to that new pose. So it's a very powerful little script that it can allow you, for example, to have a pose in your studio library where your character has the arm crossed and you had a character that was like this and that was talking, and now you can do it talking with the arm crossed. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a similar thing with the face and maybe something with the arms, actually, to try to show you and to explain to you how to use it. So here I'm using the shot of Laura Ruiz animation, but it's a guy who says well, it's a very nice shot. Sorry, let me show you without my face in there.
I know these things. I know these things.
So let's say you wanted to keep that, but you didn't want him to be smiling as much. Okay. So throughout, it feels like he is a bit smiling. So what I would do is I would, grab these, maybe reduce a tiny bit of how wide they are. Here, I don't like to have the manipulators showing, so I'm just going to hide them. So making him more in that kind of sad feeling. Same with these guys, kind of pushing them a little bit down. And same with the brows, kind of making this a little bit more low with these guys too. Oops, both this and this one higher there. So from there we get this, see this kind of sad attitude throughout. Okay, and now it still can be a little bit wider here, well, something like this, but still more in the low and this, and even the nose, I think, would be a little lower in that sadness kind of feeling. And so here I would like to readapt my animation with this. So what I would do is I would select all, the face, so all this. If you don't want to select the eyes, you can. I mean, whatever is in there, I would just select the all in this case. And you grab all the keys that you want to adapt here, and you're going to use either the next for if the key is after, or the previous if you did the key before. So that's going to depend on where is your key. And it will readapt all this animation here from that pose that you did here. So let's do it. I'm going to click on the next. You will see that now he readapted the whole thing like there.
I know these things.
You can see. Well, it's a bit big
I know these things.
because at the end he was really smiling. So what I would do is then you grab the TY of these, and since they're a little too low in all of this part, what you can do is you can basically blend it, to neighbor over there, so they're not. Oops, this was a little too. I need to blend it to this one. So that you reduce, you can see it's better. And same with these guys. I feel like these ones, they feel, I think, a little low throughout in the TY here. And now I think you have, so you can change very easily this one as well needs to be a little bit higher. And I think it's throughout. So same way, just grab this, the TY, and you just grab everything and you go towards that. Well, not too much, but there we go.
I know these things.
And now you see it has
I know these things.
completely changed from something happy to sad with this. And it's the same for the hand. Let's say for my hand here, I would like actually not to be holding the cup, but to be somewhere under the table. So I wouldn't do the pin elbow. I would grab this. It would be on his jean, right there. Okay, up the. This would be way further back over there in the alignment of my hand. Tack. Okay, so now I have this kind of pose that is different. And so what I would do is I would go to the body, select the right arm, and the same, I would select the whole animation that needs to be changed. and go with next. So let's go with next. You will see that now the arm is down there throughout, and it can even keep
I know these things.
the motion that you had in there if you put any motion in there.
I know these things.
Okay, so it could be even sitting up and having, well, this arm would still need to be in IK, but I could still do something like this. Let's try it actually. So here he would be standing up, boom, like that. That arm here would not be pinned. Yeah, this one here would be higher and somewhere there. This one would be fully actually in FK and would be behind over there, so we wouldn't see it up and being posed naturally there. Okay, and here the hand would be up, up, oops, like that. And for the elbow, it would be slightly more out. Okay, and now I would select this, and my body, all the things that I've changed, and I grab all of the curves here. Okay. Did I change that to 50 instead of 251? Okay, well, it's okay. And I'm going to go same way with the next. And so now you will see that the whole shot
I know these things.
is from standing up.
I know these things.
Wow. Okay, so you can really readapt
I know these
a lot and just keep the animation even after you're done. So this is what this script is for. I hope this will be helpful for everybody and that you enjoy this script. Is the pleasure of Joachim Radinger, who is an amazing guy who does those amazing tools. And I asked him and he says, yes, you can share those to Python. It's things that we use constantly at Fortiche. It's a different one that we have at Fortiche, but it's still doing the same thing to be able to change animation and paste it onto other characters, or changing the pose even from animation that we have in the library. So sometimes we have a guy clapping in his hand and he is up, and so we make him sitting down in this pose and he still claps in his hands. So it allows you to readapt with this. All right, so now let's take a look at workflow. Let's try to see what is the workflow that I want to use, that I want you guys to use for like trying to create some strong dynamic body mechanic shots. I think this workflow and this mentality can really help you in making things simple and in seeing how all those steps are going to help you in creating this. So first, very important thing is having a clear reference with a fixed camera. A fixed camera and your reference is key for success. Let me explain this. If your camera is moving, all the movement created by your camera is going to be actually pushing some of the movements on the character. So you're not going to be able to really assess how is the character moving. If the camera is fixed, then you can assess that. What I would say is, what you can do is using some software like on After Effects or these, they have some tracking camera stuff that can remove actually the movement and make your camera still. If you can do that, that's perfect too, but try to avoid having the moving camera because it becomes very difficult to understand the steps, how is my character moving in space, etc., etc. After that, the second important thing will be to really push the posing in 3D. Making sure that your poses, when you look at them, okay, and you go around them, they work from all angles. So this is why the Motion Actor Inc. References that have a front and a side, maybe they're not exactly perfect. Maybe they have a bit of differences because they're not recorded at the same time. But still, having the ability to have a front and a side will allow you to see the different angles and to work in 3D a lot better. I think to me this is key for success, those two things. And the third thing that is key for success that we're going to try to see and to develop is going to be how you use the rig compared to the reference. How do you manage to understand what you see in the reference and putting that into your rig with simple controls that you can actually control? That means that anything that moves is something that you created on purpose and that you can see it's going to do that. So you want to avoid using so many controls. You want to restrict the amount of control. to really the core minimum, which we're going to see. And you will see that it's not because you have more controls used that it's going to be better. I think the more that you go to the polish, the more you can put in some layers, some stuff. But in your blocking, you want to be thorough and being precise and simple when you do these. So I'm not going to go in depth in each and one of the steps of the workflow. It's more of an overview of the workflow now. Later during the class, you will see on the combo attack, I will go to a full workflow breakdown from one to the other. So it's going to be very, very more details. As well as on the parkour shot, you will see the workflow from beginning to end without any interruption, okay? Right now, I just want to see an overview of what is the workflow that I want you guys to use. So these are the two, sorry, there is two screens because you will see that I have a front and a side in there. Okay, so that's why it's split. So the references, there is, yes, you see a front and a side like that. And so what I do is the first step is, as I was mentioning, the main key poses only. As you can see, it moves in screen space and the character up. Let me put a little mark here and a little mark there. Voilà. And I go from there to there. You can see that the character movement, the character posing, the angles of the character like these and these, all of this is actually you know, the same, and trying to reproduce them exactly the same. And so I'm really careful about these things, and as I keep on going between the poses, you know, like that, I make sure that even the character moves in space and is doing the same things. How do I pick those poses? There, you know, the poses where you stay in. So here he definitely stays in that pose. Here, same thing, he stays in there, he stays in there. Then here it needs to be the passing position. So here we're in the walk or the movements. We're in the contact. We go to something like the passing to then go to the contact passing thing. I don't go to this one yet. Okay, I will do that later on. Right now, I'm going before he moves up there. Okay, and then here, same thing is because the leg is touching here, and it's also the moment where he anticipates the slash. And then I get into the pose after the slash here, and the pose in the slash here. But I really make sure that I stay exactly with my posing in there. And so it creates something like this, where it's hard, you know, to see if this is going to work is really the main poses. So the first time that you're going to show to your supervisor after this, what you're going to want to have is enough poses so that when you don't have your reference, you actually understand what is happening. And here, the real purpose of this is not to make it dynamic, is to go one-to-one with the reference so that everything is exactly the same as the reference. And so making sure that your character is at the same size on each one of these, you know, is going to help you, and making sure that the angles are the same in each one of these poses are going to help you in assessing that. And making sure that the pose works in 3D from all angles is also a very big part of that, like from here, but also from here. So both of these are going to influence that. Okay, so here I'm like on let's see how many frames I have. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1. So you see I have some on 2s, some on 4, some on 3s, some on 5. It's just enough poses so that we see all the action, but not too much, so that we're fully already in the end of the blocking. Then what I do is I put in between, so I go fully on 2 or 3. Okay, so when I'm on 5 in those keys here, I will stay on 3 and 2. When I'm on 6, I might go 3 3, or I might go 2 2 2. When I'm on 4s, I will go 2 2. Okay, so I go at the end is going to be only 3 or 2 that are left. So in this kind of thing. So here I'm fully on 3s or on 2s, okay? And I think with this is the moments where I'm fully done with the blocking. And here I extracted everything that I needed from the reference. Okay, all of the movement from the reference is extracted in there. And so you can see that with this, to me, it feels like my movement is already solid. Here is the version of that blocking here. I just press spline. Let's take a look. So for me, if when you press spline the first time you have something like this, it's already meaning that you have done something well, right? It already feels pushed. It already feels kind of nice. Already feels like kind of strong. So it's really about making sure that the poses that you have done with the reference fully on 2s and 3s, etc., are fully working in 3D to get this kind of action and movement in there. And then what I do is I go into the polish where I start to push a little bit of the body ups and downs, a little bit of like the sword swipes and all these things to try to make it more dynamic, more pushed, keeping the anticipation a little bit longer, making the actual attack faster. And again, we will dive into each individual one of these: the key poses, the blocking, the spline and polish, and also adding cameras and effects and all these kind of things to get this kind of feeling at the end of the shot. To get this kind of thing is really, again, it's the same animation as this that's been touched a little bit more. Okay, so it's kind of the same as this, but it has been touched a little bit more to get to something like that. Well, I hope this helps and this makes sense. So again, for the workflow is main key poses, then 4, 6, 5, 3, 2, then fully on 2 or 3, then just the spline version of it. You go in, you polish, as we will see in details, by going through each curve, then adding cameras and some effects to try to push this. Well, I think, and I hope these will help, and that you will be able to have this kind of really good, powerful workflow. Again, this workflow is not only for that, it's also for cartoony shots, for acting shots, having poses to start, really pushing the drawing aspect. The drawing aspect is the pose, but if you think of each pose being a drawing that is looking good and appealing in 3D, it's very important to really push that aspect of posing with your reference, analyzing references, push the posing, and then from there, we go to the movement later on. When we go into the spline and the polish, the movement will get there, the kind of things will get there. The first important thing is still the posing and making sure that the reference and your posing are similar and are matching. So now we're going to check a little bit about the rig, those Raman rigs and how to use them. It's going to be an overview of those rigs, showing you how to set them up, what to do, what to think about when we're doing this. So, okay. Actually, I don't have another camera, but this will be perfect. So the main control for the rigs of Raman and the way that I want you to use the rig is really, so first, 3 things that are important in the rig: the controls that you use, the space of which you set up your limbs, and also the rotate order of your character. So we're going to set up these so that it becomes easier to actually animate. So the first thing is the way that the limbs, etc., are set up. As you can see in Raman Rig, by default, the limbs are in global space. So if they're in global space, that means when I move my body, they stay through to global, which is the world. So you can see how the head and the arms like these, they feel more natural. Me, I also like to have the eyes in global unless it's for body mechanic shots. For the types of shots that we do, so for the body mechanic shots that we do right now, I would still go for head space, okay? But when you're in an acting shot, you go for global space. So the knees as well here, you want to have them in foot space. When you rotate your knees like this, you want for your knee to go, when you rotate your foot, you want for your knee to go with it. Like that, it's what feels the most natural. You want to also update the Raman rig with the latest one, so you have the IK twist on the legs. You'll see that these are really, really helpful. It avoids having 3 different curves, but only one when you move it in the twist there. So in terms of that, you want to have it in foot space. In case you started animating and you didn't change the space of these, okay, but you want it actually to be in a different space. So like here with Animbot, so let me launch Animbot. You have the opportunity to actually match the spaces. So in here, in this little thing here, you can go to the space there and you can say in current key, I would like to have it in body. So now my head is going to be in body space, okay? And so you can change that on your animation. This cannot be keyed, as you can see. It needs to be set up in one way for the whole shot. But with Animbot, you can also do it through current keys or through the whole keys. And so you have the opportunity actually to do it over your whole scene. So if you didn't do it right from the beginning, you can always go back and readjust that. But it's important, yes, that when you set up your rig, your head and your arms for me should be in world space. Now, that being said, if your character does a lot of spinning, like 4, 5, 6 times, sometimes maybe it's better to have the arms and the head in body space in very complex body mechanics. But as you will see for the 2 demos that it will do on the combo attack or on the parkour shot, I am keeping it in world space because I feel like that I get more of an organic feeling throughout my shot. But it depends of the preferences of others and also of the complexity of how many twists and turns there is in these. And it's also, you have the ability with Animbot to switch back and forth on these. So if you didn't do it right from the beginning, you can always go back. But those are the spaces that I change so that to me, my character, when it moves, it feels kind of like a nice puppet. The second thing that I was saying that was important is the rotate order. So the rotate order here, they're set up in your rig in a way where it allows you to have control over the way that your axes are being driven. Let me explain. Here in the rotate order, what does it says? It says that the y-axis here takes x and z with it. The x-axis takes z with it, and the z takes nothing. Okay, so if I go into gimbal mode here by clicking here in gimbal, you will see that it reflects exactly this. So here the rotate y takes both, x takes only z, as you can see x takes only z, and z takes nothing. As you can see, z doesn't make them move. So when you're in gimbal, you actually are seeing exactly what are your controllers. But me, when I'm in gimbal mode, I don't like to pose my character. It feels very difficult for me to pose my character like this. I like to be able to move it like that, and doing these kind of things without necessarily having it in gimbal. So I like to be in object space. So for this, it's important that I make sure that the rotate order are correct. Like that, I don't really get into a gimbal lock. We're going to see what a gimbal lock is. Actually, I'm going to show you right now. A gimbal lock is, for example, if I were to do the X control like that, okay, but I don't see it because I'm in object, and I were to twist it this way, you will see that all those curves will all of a sudden completely twist. And if I go to here in gimbal, you will see that right now, look how it was. It completely twisted to this. Do you see what I mean? So it's a full change that happens in one frame. That's because of a gimbal lock. So what you want to do is you want to avoid gimbal lock as much as you can. So how do you set this up? Let me explain to you in a very, very simple way, okay? The last one here, the Y axis, the one that takes everything, is the control that you're going to use the most. Okay, so in general, if you're a biped and you're rotating on yourself like this, the Y axis is the control that you use the most. Like this, obviously it happens. However, if you have a guy that is doing like a flip salt or these kind of things, and rotate X is the one that you're going to use the most, then X should be the last one. Okay, so then you can move to X or something like that. Now the middle one should be the one that you use the least, the one that you don't use, the one that you almost never use. To me, in biped stuff, the rotate Z, this one here, I think is the one that I use the less. Because the rotate X, I kind of use it to almost 90 degrees sometimes when I bend down or I try to grab things, etc. So in this case, if the one that I use the less is Z, it would mean that I put it in the middle. and the second one that I use the most, which is X, would be the first. So then I would say X, Z, Y. And let me show you why, because now if I go to my X here, and actually I am in gimbal mode, you will see that I still have the opportunity to do that, which I didn't have before, because the X is the one that you're going to use the second most. And the Y will always take it with them, then this, and you will always have the opportunity to do that on top, because that control will still be accessible because of the way that you set up your rotate order. And so if you think of it this way for everything, then you won't have any problem. Like on your hand here, the one that you're going to use the most is going to be the Z axis. Usually the Z axis is the one you use the most on the hand. So Z should be the last one here that you put. The one that you use the second most is this one, is the X axis. So that would be the first. So it would be X, Y, Z. So here you see it takes everything with it. This one does that, and we still have the opportunity to do this. Okay, and so when I think of these, and I'm sure that I set it up correctly, then down the line I very rarely get into a gimbal lock, almost never gets into a gimbal lock. So the rotate order should be as this. The last letter is the one that you use the most. The middle one is the one you use never or the less, and the first one is the second one you use the most. Well, I hope this makes sense in helping you setting these things up. For the controls. So the last thing that I was saying that is important in the rig is the controls that you will use. Okay. The reason I'm making this very clear is because like the spine control is something that people make very complicated. Okay. I think what you want to do for your spine is going to be using just the body if you can. Okay. Just the body. So meaning this control here, the hips, you do not use it in rotate Y. You never use it in rotate Y, the hips. Okay, for now on, try restrain it from using that. You can actually mute it if you want. Okay, you mute selected. No, you lock selected. I thought I could do that. Maybe not. I don't know why, but okay. Well, maybe you can. I mean, trying not to move them. Okay. The chest in here. So me, I use IK chest. Here in the Raman rig is mainly just an IK chest, but it doesn't have any other options. But this control here, I only use it in the rotate Y. Only in the rotate Y. No X, no Z. Okay, actually the hips here is not the one that I use. Let's go about this. On this control here, you have the ability to show the upper chest control, which is, you can see that control that appears here. And on this one, you have the sub control here for the hips. This is the one I use for the hips. It's more localized and it makes it feel more what I like just the hips. This one is a bit broader, and so it creates more of a like a lower spine, but I would try to use mainly the hips in these. For the top chest, this is what I use for my RX and RZ. Okay, so RX and RZ are here, and same with this, RZ and RX. Okay, so those two. And then this one is only RY, and the body is what creates most of the angle. So if she were to go down, etc., to get to this, you would use, I would say, 90% on there. And then what you would do is a little bit of the hips here to kind of help the deformation, even though it's already pretty nice what Raman did. Maybe a little bit of that one back here, then this one a tiny bit here. Well, not too much, actually. I don't think it needs that much in there. Well, maybe something like this. And then definitely the head that would go like that, and the neck as well, that will help a little bit. But the main driver for all this would still be the body. So if I check on my spine here, okay, and if I go back to 0 on these, I don't know if you see, but it's like very little compared to actually the body who creates most of the work. And then what is going to be important is the counter animation of the bottom to the top. So in general, when your feet, are going like these, okay, and your feet are like these, let's say, okay, this control here will open up. Yeah, that's better. So you open up this way, to let the legs kind of open up. One thing that I do is I always put, the twist of the knees a little bit in as well in these kind of poses to kind of help, in making them a bit more natural. I would always say that this may be a little bit like this and this. Well, anyway, it's not just for the posing, but one thing I want to mention is this here. So the rotation going with the legs, in there. What I like to do is counter with the chest here and rotate Y only this way. Okay, and it's this versus that usually creates the walk, the run, and all these kind of things, and make the feeling of what you are after in general in your poses. Because what people do a lot, and what I say to not do, is using a lot of X or Z like these, and creating those very chewing gum spine. I think to me the spine comes from that versus the body this way, and then the main angle of the body. The rest is just very small secondary things. And as you can see already, my pose like these feel a lot stronger, and already has a feeling of like having some kind of angles and C shapes, etc. But I didn't do any rotate Z nor any rotate X, or very little rotate X compared to what I have in the body. For the arms, you want to have them in FK unless they're in contact with something and you want them to be stabilized. So you see your legs, they're in IK because they're on the floor, right? So for your arms is the same. If they're on contact with a wall, if they're in contact with a desk or something like this, you want to have them in IK so it becomes an inverse kinematics. But if not, you want to keep your arms as much as you can in rotations, so in FK, because all of these are more rotation, and it's, to me, easier to control the arms when they're fully just rotation and FK. To me, it's a bit easier to control and to pose, and also to have nice arcs. That's what I was trying to say, is like to get better arcs. I feel like it's cool to have those kind of like rotations in your arms as you animate. What else can I say? Yes, for the feet, as we will see as well during the demos, but I use the ball roll, and I use the toe heel roll with the ball roll coming back, and then I use the toe heel roll this way to make it go to the floor, and I use the in and out roll just to make it like the banking aspect of my feet with the IK twist going like that. So I use mainly those 4 controls with the TZ and the road, and that's it, going forward and stuff. You will see that those can be very simple to use. I will be 2 demo. I will do one where some of it I use some rotations, and some of it I just use full on just rolls and things like these. Voilà, for the head and for the neck, as you can see, the neck is in body space, but you want to have it kind of in the alignment of your spine. And I like for the head in general to still create a little bit of like a connection between the chin and the V neck aspect of that. For the face, I'm not going to go in details on this because honestly, it's not the purpose of the class. The class is way more about body mechanics. If you want to know more on face, there is the whole Colosso face and acting, where I go in depth on face because there is a lot to see. The only thing I would say is, yeah, keep the eyes in body space, but make sure that they're kind of always having like the focus being forward or these kind of things. Well, I think that's it for the rigs. For the hands, you will see there is a specific thing on hands to try to make some good hand poses, but you can see how the poses can be very simple with a few controls. Right now is mainly the body that I use and the RY of the chest to create that. And then in the IK is the TX, TZ, and the IK twist and those four. So at the end, there's very little curves when you're going to go to the polish stage and all that, so that you can control them. Again, for the upper chest, is that one only in RX and RZ, and in RZ I would almost like try not to use it at all. You will see in the combo attack demo there is no RZ in the upper chest, and then the small hips you can use in RX and RZ only, the body in everything. TX, TY, TZ. Do not use the chest translation. Do not use these guys. Don't use these translation here. Don't use the hips translation yet. Like, to me, people start using a lot of these and then they have a tons of curves instead of having just that one body curve with those 6 curves in there. If you start doing translations on here, you have translation on the chest, rotation on the chest, rotation on the body, translation on the body, translation. So then you have tons and tons of curves to have to polish instead of keeping it to the really core source of everything, which is the cog, the body mover. And even in there, sometimes what I like to do is change a bit of the pivot of that with the Animbot temporary pivot, because you know what happens in the body is, like in most of it, is actually compensating on its own like this. You can see how this feels pretty natural without doing much, and you have a lot of changes in kind of the, and you click back on here, you can see how like that you can keep, you know, stability and things in your body. This here is the Animbot temporary pivot. With this thing you can change the pivot of your body, so the body is there. And what the temporary pivot does is it changes translations and rotations in there while you manipulate it. So what you do is you click on the body, okay? You click on here, and then when it's like this, you change it. So you press D, but you change it, and then you go back to rotation, and it's temporary, right? So it's not really the pivot that changed. If you look, the body pivot is still there, but it adjusted translations and rotation to create that. It's something that I use a lot for hands, for different pivots, and we will see that on some of the demos in the coming days. Voilà. I hope this helps for the rigs and how to set it up, what control to use, etc. And we will see that in depth as I go into the classes. See you soon.